Minnesota Vikings at the Green Bay Packers. Vikings favored by 1 here in Green Bay. Two teams kind of going in different directions here.
Yeah, the resurgent Minnesota Vikings.
3-4 in one-score games now. They only play one-score games.
Heading right back to the mean.
They are. Coming off a really good Monday night win. It was impressive. Look, Cousins got away with that one pass before the half that turned into a 60-yard touchdown. That was certainly lucky. Beyond that, though, like I said earlier, I mean, they attacked the middle of the field like crazy. Cousins made a ton of plays under pressure, in tight pockets, even broke free from a sack in the fourth quarter, making big plays. Cousins in the passing attack looked great, and their defense has they've taken baby steps of their own since starting slow.
Yeah, and I think it was also important that they didn't go away from Jordan Addison after that early interception, because that was bad from Addison. I mean, he got beaten start to finish on that play. He got owned at the line, got jammed, and then couldn't fight his way through the contact and get in front of his DB, which kind of hung his quarterback out to dry. Now, you can make the point that Cousins needs to see that and not throw the ball, but a lot of times quarterbacks basically throw the slant with full trust on the receiver. And the worst thing the receiver can do is violate that trust by not at least getting in front of the guy and making sure that it's not dangerous. It's just bad, right? Addison didn't do that. The ball gets picked off. It's like the worst thing he can do on that play. And instead of going, well, I can't have trust in Jordan Addison anymore. I got to go, it's time to feed KJ Osborne. He wouldn't have screwed me.
Yeah.
He goes back to him, and he keeps feeding him, and actually Addison ends up bailing him out and making a huge play for that touchdown. But the important part is, he's clearly the best receiver they have at this point. KJ Osborne is limited. He stays in the role that KJ Osborne has. Addison is the guy they need to lean on now in a post Justin Jefferson world until he comes back. So I think it was a really important part of that game that they kept going back to Jordan Addison and sort of made sure to lean on effectively their best playmaker.
Yeah, I mean, that's the type of play when you're scouting. You write down, can't beat press.
Right.
He can be out physical. And then all of a sudden, again, before the half, the ball should have been picked off by the same guy, Charvarius Ward, who's a very physical corner with length, and Addison wins at the catch point. That was impressive, because that's not supposed to be Addison's game at all. He is a good route runner, and when he does get off press, he can get open. So the Vikings having some answers without Justin Jefferson, I think, is impressive. And then on the other side, you've got Jordan Love, and again, when you're facing the Vikings, you're going to face a lot of blitzes. And you have a Packers offense that just the same thing we described with the Saints. The offense is just off. You've got the young playmakers. Jordan Love in his first year as a starter, he's not playing great, but you're not getting a lot of help. They're very out of sync. And the one thing you need to be against a blitz-heavy team is in sync and on the same page. And there was plays last year where Christian Watson just didn't know he was the hot receiver, didn't run the right route. And when it's with Aaron Rodgers, it's like, well, of course, Watson's wrong. He doesn't trust him, but it's the same thing no matter who the QB is. As much as I love deep speed and Christian Watson, you got to know when you're the hot receiver, and you're just supposed to turn around and catch the ball. Those are the types of things the Packers need to do a better job of offensively. So they're going to be challenged this week by Minnesota.
Be interesting to see what game plan the Vikings defense deploys. I mean, we know they're going to blitz, but they've run different personnel packages depending on the offense they're facing. Going up against Jordan Love, what is that going to look like? The other element is Jordan Love's been pretty good against the blitz this year, but where I think this Vikings defense is really difficult to deal with for quarterbacks is it's unusual, and they are showing teams something that they don't see every single week. And I think that's where Brock Purdy ran into trouble, right? Is that the real problem with the Shanahan offense is not when it sort of runs out of answers and everybody's covered and the quarterback has got to ad-lib and make something happen that isn't there, because Brock Purdy's shown he can do that. And that's why they're such a great match. The real problem is when you anticipate a rule from the defense and it's different, and the defense is just doing something you're not expecting it to, because then suddenly you have throws like Brock Purdy had where he's throwing it to a spot, not because he doesn't see a guy, but because he expects that guy to not be there by the time the ball arrives, right? He's anticipating that safety having a different responsibility or role or assignment on that play and putting the ball in the air, and they've just got it wrong. They've got the rules for that defense wrong because at the moment, nobody knows what the hell the rules for that defense are. It seems to be insane. So Jordan Love is in a similar situation of a lot of his mistakes are misreading coverages and not necessarily anticipating defenders being in a certain spot at the right time. That gets exponentially harder going up against the Vikings and their 3 safety, 1 middle linebacker type of deployment and trying to figure out where the hell each one of those safeties is going to be on any given play.
Yes, that'll be a great matchup to watch. The one other matchup I want to highlight is the Vikings. You surprised by the Vikings offensive line grading so well? Number 1 run blocking team, that includes everybody. Number 3 pass blocking team by grade. Some of the continuity up front for the Vikings perhaps paying off here. You got Rashawn Gary on the other end, looking at a historic level win rate. So I think that whole matchup, even though Cousins was outstanding under pressure the other day, you got to get pressure on him, try to force some mistakes. Darnell Savage has been put on injured reserve for the Packers. I don't know. We're going to see some Anthony Johnson Jr. maybe. Had 4 snaps the other day. Remember the 7th rounder that Chris loved during draft season. So the Packers have some things to figure out. They're going to need guys like Rashawn Gary to continue to play at the level he's played at.
Yeah, I mean, Gary's been as good as any edge rusher in the NFL, albeit on a smaller sample size because they've been easing him back from injury, which probably helps you perform at that kind of level, right? Like I suspect if most elite pass rushers had their workload scaled back by 50%, they would all play slightly better just because you're not wasting energy on certain plays where you're not able to have an impact. Unfortunately, we don't get to see Gary versus Darisaw, which I think would be an amazing one-on-one matchup. Darisaw is
he definitely out?
No, it's not that. It's that
just
he plays the other side of the line. But we are going to get to see Gary versus Brian O'Neill, which is pretty good matchup in and of itself, but one that I would say does favor Gary a bit.
Did you guys, on the review show, did you touch on the TJ Hawkinson injury faking thing?
No.
Okay. That was Joe Buck just misspoke and then corrected it, and some people ran with it. That was stupid.
Yeah.
Did you see all that?
I saw that, they basically accused him of telling him to fake it.
We just caught Kevin O'Connell.
Right.
You didn't catch anything.
I mean, Joe Buck does have a tendency to get quite out of, what's the term, out of pocket when it comes to describing Vikings games randomly. Like, he was the guy on the call for Randy Moss mooning the crowd back in 2004 that effectively got Moss ran out of Minnesota. It's like, okay, you can probably dial it back a little bit there, Joe.
I did my best to try to add context to everybody's like, what? The Vikings are cheating? Like, no. The guy that's hurt, they wanted him to, be hurt. Yes. And not play hurt.
Go down and be hurt so that they can get a substitution on rather than having to rush it.
All right, where are you going with this one? It's Minnesota favored by 1 in Green Bay.
Yeah. If I'm going to go with the Vikings. I think they're in better shape right now. And the Vikings are in sort of the opposite direction. Like, Cincinnati kind of need a win because if they don't get one, their schedule is brutal for a while, and wins might be hard to come by. If the Vikings can get a win here, their schedule is like a cakewalk for a while. They could actually propel themselves right back into playoff contention quickly.
Yeah, I told you I was higher on Minnesota coming into the season than I thought I would be, and then they start 0-3, and it's like, well, I feel like an idiot. But here they are, and look, Kirk Cousins deserves credit. He's continuing to produce, despite when he has offensive line issues, he still produces. Mm-hmm. When he has Justin Jefferson out, he's still producing. So. Give Kirk, everybody's saying his flowers now. I don't like that. Give this guy his flowers. Everybody says this now every day. Just give him credit.
I was thinking this morning on the way in, listening to a podcast that used that term, and they used it in a slightly different way than people normally use it, but it sort of hit home how quickly that term has just hit the vernacular and been adopted as a thing.
It's like the last 2 months.
Right.
Basically.
It's like we all just in the space of a few weeks decided that was a great idiom to use in the English language, and now we're all running with it.
Even the NFL bots are using it, and they don't even have opinions. They just report on stuff. They're still using it.
I'm kind of with you. I kind of hate it.
I'm over it. Give Kirk Cousins credit.
It's not even that I'm over it. I just don't like it as an idiom.
You used it once. You've retired it though. You're done. You're out.
I
never used it.
I caved to peer pressure, and I was like, everyone's using this. I should jump on the bandwagon.
But you're out.
And now I'm like, it's just a crappy term. I don't like it.
I expect all of our listeners to also be out.
Anti-Flower Brigade over here.
Yeah. So I'll take Minnesota as well.